Welcome to Innovators Unscripted, the podcast for innovators by innovators. Today, Tina and I are so excited to welcome Jessica Holloway from our very own Chicago 2024 Innovator cohort. We're so excited to see you and catch up with you. It's been almost 2 years since we were together in Chicago, and Jessica is coming to us today from Tennessee. And I'm hoping you can just take a few minutes before we get into things to introduce yourself and where you are and what you're up to.
Well, it's so glad to be here with both of you this morning. It's good to see your faces again. I'm Jessica Holloway. I'm an instructional coach in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I am chasing all of the dreams. So I am continuing to work on my Innovator project. It continues to be refined and evolved, and I am currently an instructional coach at a high school in my district. And so I've really enjoyed getting back into one school and getting to work a little bit more closely and seeing things, my coaching impact evolve over the course of the year. As a district coach, it was really hard to see that kind of impact because being in and out of multiple schools, you really don't get to watch the growth. And so it has been very rewarding being at a school this year and being able to see that growth and getting to know students and teachers, more closely and build those relationships and be in the work every day at a particular school. So I really enjoyed that. That has made my coaching heart very happy. And I've also been working committees with computer science in the state of Tennessee. We're looking at already how to revise them because, technology and computer science continues to evolve so quickly. We want to make sure our standards are reflecting the real work that's out there and continue to stay relevant as we put those in our classrooms. We recently had a law go into effect that computer science is a graduation requirement. And so there are grade band requirements. So we're learning across the state of Tennessee of what computer science education looks like K-12. So that's exciting work. I'm doing lots of things. So I don't know how long I should talk. This is an introduction. So I'm just going to stop there. I'm doing lots of things, but those are the big things that I'm working on currently. And
That was an absolutely perfect
okay,
introduction.
great.
Awesome. And it leads right into everything. We're going to deep dive and talk about all of these amazing hats you wear and roles you play and all of the learning that you've had over the course of the last 2 years. But before we do, we like to start off with like a little kind of icebreaker, especially based on what you just said in your introduction, how you have these different roles, these different tasks, these different branches. We're curious about your browser tab confession. So how many tabs do you have open right now? And maybe if you want to share with us, like, what's the weirdest or most unexpected one that you have?
So it depends on what computer I have open on how many tabs, because I also like to group my tabs. So like it's slightly cheating when you do it that way. So typically on my work computer, there's probably anywhere between 5 to 10 open at a given time. When it gets to be too much, I get too cluttered and then I start closing things and putting it on my do later list because I get too distracted. But currently on this, I have 8 tabs currently open. Um, and I guess the weirdest one it's not really a weird one, but I don't know. It's over here looking at the difference between play for adults and a play for children and the difference in approaches because we'll talk about this later, but I'm big into purposeful play and trying to consider because too often we say like, oh, you do the same thing for adults that you do for kids. And yes and no. But how does play evolve from when we're like our younger self to our older selves? So yeah.
That's awesome. I think I never grew up like both actually in height and like figuratively. But the idea of play, we're totally going to get into that sounds like it's going to be absolutely amazing. But I want to start off because of where we are in our projects is we're going to hop back into the time machine, back to 2024. And the thing is we were like the coolest cohort. Oh, sorry, I guess I shouldn't say that since we're interviewing innovators,
Well,
but I just
it's
wanted to
facts,
mention
facts,
I just wanted to mention because it was like our cool cohort. But it's always good for all of our speakers on our show to tell us like what led you there. I want to ask normally like where were you in your career, but it sounds like you wear so many hats. How about you just tell us more about like the challenge that brought you to the academy? What was your main project on?
Yeah, so I had seen previously like these applications for Google Innovator come up, because they go back a ways. And I always thought like I'm not a Google innovator. Like I just use Google and I like Google. And so it was never a thing that I really had on my radar. And as I worked through things and I got certified level 1, level 2, then I did trainer. Oh, look, I'm falling apart. I did trainer and got really more comfortable and seeing myself not just as like a Google user, but a Google like user who coaches other people on how to use it. I was like, huh. But about that time, like the Innovator Academies paused. COVID disrupted all of the things. And so I was like, oh, well, I guess they're done with that, or that's not an option anymore, and kind of just left it out of my brain. But then I saw it come back up that it was an option. And um, I, my current role at that time was a district innovation coach. And I was like, I don't think I can call myself an innovation coach if I'm not going to try to be an innovator. But also, I've been coaching in a coaching role for a decade. And I pour so much into other people that I've had to learn along the way to do things for myself and for my own learning. Because a lot of times I'll go out and learn something because I'm like, oh, this will help me better coach this person or better coach that person. But I need to invest in my own growth just for me, nobody else, no other intentions. And so when I saw the Innovator Academies back open, I was like, I want this for me. I want this to be a growth of something that's just mine for my own celebration. It's okay if it doesn't impact anybody else. This is for me. And so that's why, I applied, and very grateful that I was selected to be part of that Chicago cohort.
That is so powerful what you just said, because I think if you have people listening to this that are aspiring innovators and they're like, I don't have time to do that, or I don't feel like I'm good enough to do that. And then most importantly, they're like, I don't have time to do that. I have so many other things to do and I have to do so much for all these other people. I think that's truly powerful. Like what you were saying is that sometimes the idea of putting on your own oxygen mask first is really, really important. So tell us a little more about what your project entailed and like what surprised you most about your experience at the Academy.
So my project was grounded in elevating teacher voice, and we were fortunate to partner with TED Ed. And so there were opportunities to have discussions around how to elevate teacher and student voice along the way. And it got into kind of like my own personal reflection of I didn't feel qualified enough to be a Google innovator. And in my experience in coaching, I ran into a lot of educators who didn't feel, you know, qualified in some sort of way to give voice to something. And so the basis behind it was, we go to these PD sessions. A lot of people are sitting in there that have things to contribute but never have a voice. So how do we redesign professional learning experiences that affirm and validate the wisdom in the room, but give everybody a voice and stop having this like, well, I'm not the department chair, or I'm not the instructional coach, or I'm not the district content person, or I'm not this thing that makes you qualified to speak on it, and give everybody a voice in the learning process.
Wow, you brought up a really interesting point too about our particular cohort, because we were unique in the fact that we did all this design thinking work around these problems, but we also were able to partner with these nonprofit organizations. And that's kind of where we branched off a bit as a cohort. So it sounds like you are on the TED Ed voice route, and Tina and I know we're on the AI ISTE route. So we had kind of different experiences there, but all centered around this design thinking. So I'm wondering, during our time in Chicago or after in your work with TED Ed, is there a point where you had to completely pivot in your project? Because I mean, your challenge is such a timely challenge. It's a continuing, ongoing, evolving challenge, especially now with the evolution of comfort levels around AI implementation. So I'm wondering, can you share with us maybe a point where you really had to pivot or fail forward?
I think I didn't have big ones. I had small ones along the way. So I at first wasn't sure the structure of it was the big piece of like, how do you make this happen? Because time is always a constraint. So like how how do you, if you're sitting in a room with 30 people, how do you get 30 voices out if you have 20 minutes? Like how does that work? So that was the biggest challenge that I had to even get going. And so I just kind of played around with different kind of frames and time structures. And then, kind of work through what it could look like during the academy. And then I was fortunate that I facilitated STEM network meetings. And so I had a group of people, we met kind of bi-monthly, that became my pilot group. And so they were good sports and willing to try out this new format and give feedback. And so along the way, too, my mentor, Katie Fielding, gave me some input on things to just tweak it this way and try it and see what the difference could be. So I'm still in that process as I try this out in different settings, how it looks and how it works. I'm even in May in the Tennessee STEM Innovation Summit. I'm gonna do a session on it and try it in a group of however many people come to that conference session and see how it goes, and then figure out how you tweak it for bigger audiences. So I'm still pivoting and learning and making those changes.
I think that's so important in that design thinking process that it's always continual, right? And I have to totally admire your courage and your aptitude to be like, I'm going to go to a conference and just try it with a whole entire group of people. Because I think when you are a district lead or you are at a specific school, you get very comfortable with your people. And so you do it. So I'm so glad that you're taking this idea and pushing it out to like the entire world to learn how to do this process. You were talking about how you have been a coach for 10 years, right? And then obviously you're sort of spearheading this idea of changing what a passive learner is in professional development. So, give us your opinion as a coach who knows what they're doing and has been doing this for a long time. Why do you think that like the idea of sit and get PD is so broken? Like why do you think that doesn't really work?
Well, I mean, we've all been there sitting in a library or cafeteria or room and folding chairs when somebody gets up and opens up a PowerPoint and just starts clicking and reading the slides. And we're all sitting there going through our to-do list, or we're all sitting there thinking this could have been an email. And when it's structured like that, it's ignoring how our brains work and actually what adults need to learn. So, so just thinking like instead of thinking of teachers as just like empty vessels that you need to impart this knowledge onto, um, you need to consider what they actually want and need. So shifting into, instead of designing for teachers, designing with teachers, because I've even caught myself as a coach making assumptions about what teachers need. And when I talk to them, I'm like, oh, that's not actually what they need at all. This is the thing they actually need. That they already understand this. So it slows down the process. But a lot of times I say you got to go slow to go fast. If you design with the people who are going to be attending the PD instead of for the people that are going to be attending PD. And now sometimes that's going to look different ways. It may just be surveys. It may be feedback on a plan. It may have like one or two people you bounce ideas off of because things take time. And I've already said we don't have enough time. But when you just are out there designing it out of your own mind and thinking of what you think people need, you're going to miss the mark. And when they're just sitting in a seat listening, there's no engagement, there's no choice, there's no relevancy, there's no application. It's not how our brains are going to intake information.
Yeah, when you put it like that, it sounds and feels so obvious, but doing that is a complete disruption to the way that things have been done, to the routines that teachers have set around professional development. I know like teachers sometimes count on using that passive listening time to do other things, and they come to almost rely on that routine. So by shifting gears and involving them in the PD process, even though it seemed like it obviously sounds like the right thing to do, it's still a disruption. And then we also have this piece where teachers sometimes feel like they're not like worthy or not able to drive their own learning. And you even, I think you called the expertise gap, where they like these teachers who are making thousands and thousands of decisions a day, driving their classroom, leading in their own way in their building and their teams, but they still have this imposter syndrome when it comes to their own professional learning and collaboration and leadership. Can you talk to us a little bit about like addressing that?
Yeah, I mean, it's come up this year with teachers. They are so comfortable standing in their classroom, presenting on a daily basis to their students, and then when you say something of like, "Hey, can you share this at the faculty meeting or with your department?" They freeze. And I've had numerous ones even admit, like, I am so comfortable talking to my kids, but I cannot talk to my peers. And it's that whole, like, there's not a level of psychological safety going on in a school. And that's a big culture thing that has to be developed. And it also has to be a mind shift. It kind of disrupts how we normally approach things. Like you have these experts that come in and they train teachers all the time, but it really, there's a level of street cred I don't have. I am not in a classroom every day teaching students. I am not in there the one actually applying curriculum strategies. I am beside the teacher. And so there are things that they know and understand about this that I will never be able to give voice to. And so I try to have that conversation with them of, you have a level of expertise that I no longer have. And that expertise needs to be shared with others because you are doing something that works with this same group of kids that the teacher down the hall, same group of kids, and it's not, something's not working for them. So building the expertise, because we can't always go and look outside of our buildings for answers. Most of the time, the answers are already in your building. You're not giving voice to the people who have the answers. So getting them comfortable, and I think that's where going back to my project with like Lightning Learns is going to be like a segue of giving them opportunities to have voice and share things that feel low risk and less intimidating. But if you phrase it as like you're gifting other people with strategies and ideas that may help them solve a problem in their classroom, it feels less like you're giving them a presentation to give, as in you're helping a colleague be successful. And don't we all want to feel successful?
Ooh, I got goosebumps. I'll be honest. The idea where you're saying that the answers are already in the building, right? It's just an idea of a cultural shift, or the idea of having teachers that have enough faith in themselves of what they're amazing at, that they are actually the expertise in every room that they teach. That is just like, ooh, that's all tingly for me. So you're just talking about Lightning Learns. So walk us through a little bit about Lightning Learns and what that practice looks like. Like, how are they structured to be low stakes, and why do you feel like that's impactful?
Yeah, so this is like the opposite of sitting in that library or cafeteria listening to someone else give a PowerPoint because everyone's involved in the learning. And so the structure of Lightning Learns, it's designed to be done in 3 to 5 minutes. And so, because we always talk about time. So the thing you have to consider when designing your Lightning Learn is narrowing in something very specific. Like you can't share a whole unit plan in a lightning learn. And there's times to share that. And that's where, a longer presentation would be appropriate. But in this, it's like 30 seconds. I want you to introduce who you are, what you do, just so people know your context and your background and expertise. And then identify what is the specific strategy, tool, whatever it is that you're going to share. You got to explain what it is that you're sharing. And then think about who the audience would be. Like this is best suited for librarians or K-5 teachers. Know who the audience is of who you're sharing this with. So that way, they have an idea, oh, this was designed for K-5, but I see as a ninth grade teacher, I could adapt it and use it here with my ninth graders. And then have like, this is all kind of like 60 seconds of each part. And it flows a little different depending on what you need in each area. And then what is the actual process or procedure for whatever it is that you're sharing? And then you kind of wrap it up with like, what is the impact it's had? Or why should someone else try it? Like, hey, this has kept me from losing my mind as their entry process into the classroom. This might work for you. And the reason why it feels less intimidating is because it's a short amount of time. If I say, can you talk about this for 3 minutes, feels very different than a 60-minute presentation. That feels very intimidating, especially if you've never presented before. And with Lightning Learns, I don't have it so structured that you have to do it exactly this way. So you could do it where everybody is like a presenter goes up to the front of the room and you run through it. You could start it like you could schedule people over the course that's your opener for your department meetings. One person's going to share. Or I've done it where we just do rounds. Like you're going to have this sharing with a partner. We're going to spend 20 minutes. I'm just going to have a timer. Every 5 minutes, you move to someone else and talk and move it around that way. And that feels less intimidating because it's a conversation instead of a presentation. And so sometimes that feels way better than standing and saying like, I'm the expert, listen to this amazing thing. So I don't know, that's how it feels anyway. And the first time you do anything, it's very robotic. It's like you got to follow the recipe. But as you create more and more of these, it becomes, just the way that you talk and present something.
You're checking off all of those adult learner and engagement components as you describe the structure of these, where it's efficient, it's very intentional, but it's also attainable for the person who's putting it together as well as the audience who's receiving it. And then you've also factored in that adaptability. So while you're saying, yes, it's very structured, I, I see it less as a structure and more as just a very targeted, intentional design that can be adapted not only in the way that those 3 to 5 minutes are organized, but also in the way that the deliveries themselves are provided to teams. And I think like that dynamic aspect of it is just what's going to make this thing that sounds so simple, Lightning Learns, into something that's so impactful. I'm wondering, can you share with us like either a specific example of someone's Lightning Learn that you can just give us a brief summary of, or like a story of a teacher who gave a Lightning Learn or received a Lightning Learn and had impact from it?
Yeah. So in my, piloting out with my group, at first, like I had where you did it on slide deck and then you presented from there and it required you to be live in the room. And then I had some attendees that said like I couldn't be there and like I missed the interaction of it. So we tried another version. We used Book Creator and we had them not only do the same sort of thing we did on the slide deck, but also include a recording of it because 3 to 5 minute recording doesn't take that long. And the nice thing about that is like, if you don't like the way you said something, or if you want to redo it, you can get to where you're comfortable with whatever's in there is in there. Every STEM network meeting, I send a follow-up email with resources. And I made a note in there about, hey, don't forget to go back and learn from your colleagues from the Lightning Learns. And I had a principal that wasn't able to attend, and I guess she took the opportunity to check out the Lightning Learns. And her exact words were, "I love the Lightning Learning, stealing some great ideas." And that just hit me that a principal who has all of the things going on took a moment, opened it up, and found value in not even like being there for it, but it was standalone enough that she got ideas from that and took the time to tell me it was valuable. So like all of that really stuck with me, that this has an opportunity to have a big impact in that it is seen as valuable from school leaders all the way to, classroom teachers.
I am so glad that you came to talk to us because I feel like this is so valuable on so many levels for coaches and teachers and anyone who is giving professional development. The idea that you took this idea not only to say a room full of teachers, let's figure out how to make this low stakes, allow them to be able to talk to each other in a place that feels safe and comfortable, but then also leveraging technology like we've been talking to a space of a lot of educational technology people and places, and you are actually melding those two ideas together of taking book creator and taking the idea of letting them create videos so that way it continues to live on and like spread across your entire district. This just sounds incredible to me, and I'm sure that it will continue to build and gain momentum. Let's talk a little bit about the idea of going back to being a coach. So, what happens when you have someone who flat out says, I don't have anything innovative to present. I don't think I have anything to talk about at all. Like, what happens when you get that one person that's like, I just can't do this in any capacity?
So usually when they do that, I'm like, okay, well, let's think about this. Tell me about the last time you felt successful in your classroom, or the last time you did a lesson and you just were smiling. It just felt right and felt good. Just talk to me about it. And usually, as they're talking, I'll find things that are worthy of sharing. Like sometimes when they're in that conversation, I might ask more questions. And then it also gives me an opportunity as a coach to assign competence to things that they are doing that they don't even realize that they're doing. And some very natural teachers don't realize the intentional things that they're doing because it comes so naturally to them that I have to stop and name the things that they're doing. And when I do that, then I say, okay, is this something you feel comfortable sharing? Is this a spot, this thing right here? Because I think it has impact over here as well. And so a lot of times I think the simple things they think are too simple that aren't worth sharing. And sometimes those simple things are the things that other people can do tomorrow and that will make them more happy and not want to leave the profession. So the simple things are sometimes the things that we need to be sharing.
It sounds like you have such an amazing rapport with the teachers and the staff members that you work with. And based on what you said about your current position, it sounds like you are doing exactly like what you were meant to do. The outlook that you have around teacher voice and really sitting and listening to them, it just seems like you're doing exactly what you should be doing, and you're doing it so well. That piece of just being able to listen and talk to a teacher and identify and validate their feelings is just so powerful as an instructional coach, especially when you even admit and own your own limitations and validate their expertise. I think that's phenomenal. And as a fellow coach in a slightly different role, I think one of the things that I struggle with, and I know a lot of instructional coaches struggle with, is that transferability. When you see something and you're talking to a teacher and you see, wow, this is great. How do we take an idea that's great that one teacher is doing and spread it without like stepping on people's toes or telling them what to do? Do you have any strategies that you can share around that transfer process?
Um, hmm. Well, I I also one time somebody asked me like what do I do? If it was in some PD, which was a great opener by the way. It was like tell me what you do without telling me what you do, that kind of thing of as far as your role is. And so I was trying to figure out a way to like explain instructional coaching without saying instructional coaching. So I came up with like, I'm an idea pollinator. So I was like, I could, that's what I do without saying exactly what I do. Because I think I am gifted with the opportunity to see so many classrooms. Like teaching and learning in my building is deprivatized for me as a coach because I get to go into the classrooms. What I want to do for other people is to help deprivatize all of our practices so we're all in this community of learning. Because as I said before, I truly believe the answers are already in the building to the majority of the problems that we have. And so I encourage, and my co-coach that I have at my school, we really encourage teachers to be the experts. And so oftentimes we'll see something working really well and we'll say, hey, either can you share this or can we invite this other person to come in and watch? Can we do a learning lab in here? And we stress a lot of times it's not about the content we want you to see. We want you to see either the enactment, the process, the strategy that is going to work in any classroom. It doesn't matter the content. Content specific stuff we'll cover in our coaching sessions or with our district content lead, that will cover. But they're teaching, the art of teaching, the strategies, that is transferable. And when you see it working with the same kids that you have, you get more willing to try it and take the risk of like, okay, it can work with these students. How can I make it work in my classroom? And so it's just trying to, get us in a place where we're willing to not only share our success, but also our failures. I'm like, oh, I'll tell you this didn't work. Please don't try this. Or you can try it, but I'm just warning you, like 0 out of 10, do not recommend to do that because it did not go well in my room. And being able to do that, then, it's a collective, shared, safe place to say, we're all learning in this together. We're all trying this out and, sharing that with each other. So when the wins are out there, they're collective wins.
Oh, that was a great phrase. The idea of having the collective wins are out there and creating an entire community of people who want to share those instructional strategies and taking their full-on ideas and be allowed to share them with each other. And I like how you said that they're allowed to share them in a space where they feel like they are 100% comfortable in that, but they can also share their failures of what's not working. I think you also said something about how teachers are going into each other's classrooms so that way they can look at how they're doing and say, oh, wow, that worked for me and talk it through. I guess I'm kind of stuck on this idea, and maybe it's because you mentioned earlier that you wear another hat, right? In your role about computer science. So computer science is a little bit different because a lot of teachers feel that's new, or if you talk to teachers, they feel like that's not something they're equipped to share, or that's not something they feel comfortable with. So, how can you apply something, and maybe it doesn't have to be computer science, but something where if teachers don't feel comfortable with teaching that area, or let's say a teacher's not comfortable with teaching computer science, would Lightning Learn framework still work with that, or do you normally stick to things that they feel very comfortable about?
So I think you hit on something that I think we're seeing in a lot of places, not just in my area, is that computer science education is like the ultimate imposter syndrome trigger for teachers. And it's like, I am not a software engineer, like I'm not a coder, so like I can't teach this. And I think underneath all that is the fear of like, what if a student answers a question I can't answer? Because we're so used to as a teacher, we're the experts, right? And so I think of computer science as like the great equalizer for teachers. We all don't know. So like let's all roll back and learn on this together. None of us went to school. There may be a few of us out there that went to school for computer science, but likely most of us did not. So it is, giving everyone permission to be an apprentice, a beginner at something. It's okay. It's okay to say, I'm here at 0, but I'm willing to move forward. And that move forward may look very different, and we may move forward in different paces. For some people that feel more comfortable with it than others. And I think too, thinking about it as like you have to be this computer science specialist instead of thinking about, you know, foundational understanding and thinking processes, that I think computer science can be transferable across different areas. But, we don't have to be a novelist to teach students how to write an essay. You don't have to be a computer science engineer to teach computer science. Now you get into higher level stuff, yes, you're going to have that. But for what we're doing in the K-8 and even in the high school space, you don't have to be that level of a specialist to understand how to teach. And I think Lightning Learns could be a method for that.
That really speaks to the versatility of Lightning Learns, that they can be used for these like small pedagogical shifts and best practices, but then also used as like small little nuggets of information that can help build an interest or spark a curiosity for something that a teacher hasn't learned about at all, because you don't know if that little CS Lightning Learn might spark an interest, like, oh wait, I didn't know that I could do that. Especially now with CS, as teachers are starting to get exposed to like vibe coding and some of those tools, it's making it more accessible. But I really love what you were starting to talk about, even from the beginning. I've been excited to talk about this when you talked about your play tab that's open on your browser, and now you brought it up again. And it really makes me think about that word joy, and how so much of what you do in your work is grounded in joy. And joy is not a word that is often or ever associated with professional development or professional learning. But we can see just from that brief explanation about how joy and play can be connected and into authentic learning. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you inject actual joy into these professional learning experiences?
Yeah, so hmm, it's been on my mind since I first became a coach. A promise that I made to myself, like as my teacher self coming out of the classroom and moving into a coaching role, I promised myself like one thing: I would never waste teacher time. And I was like, okay. But then as I moved into a district level role, is that I would not make PD painful. So it was like, the evolution of like my goal as a coach. Like, I still don't want to waste teacher time, but I also don't want this to be a painful experience. And my former director, we used to have lots of conversations about indicators for success, because I talked about how hard it was as a district coach to, really be able to pinpoint your success when you're, not at a location all the time. And I used one of my informal metrics was, do people smile when they see me coming? Because if they see me coming and they smile, then I'm doing my job right, because they want me to be there and that I am seen as somebody who's going to enhance their day. So that was an informal metric I used for quite a while. But it's the same sort of thing. Like if they see me come in to present PD, are they smiling? Or does this look like something? Is there a painful look on their face? And there are some times when I do PD and we're playing and there's a little bit of like disequilibrium happen and there's a little bit of pain in their face, but that's okay, because later on we're going to laugh about it and we're going to come through it. So I guess there's a little bit of like relaxed structure in that we're going to do things that are going to make us, get outside of our comfort zone, but that's part of the process. But we're going to have experiences that either incorporate play, or that we share experiences together, or we fail together and we laugh about it and then figure out like, how do we fix this situation? And, I think emotions, and I know there's research out there, but I don't have it in front of me. Emotions plus experience make things more memorable. And it can be painful in experience, And then that's what you remember about PD, or it can be enjoyable and learning, and that's your PD, and that's what you remember. And I would rather it be that, because it's more likely that they will continue to want to learn and take risk and put themselves out there if it's the positive, enjoyable, even if it's, challenging and difficult.
Okay, Jessica, you have come to our space and you've made, I'm going to speak on behalf of Liz because I know her pretty good, but you came to this with such a positive, like you just have such a positive personality. The fact that you came into this with the idea of having two promises to yourself, and as far as I can tell, you are definitely meeting that benchmark. You are totally the type of person who you are making PD very intentional. You have taken this idea of PD that seems absolutely awful because I'm in that PD space a lot, and the idea of you should make your parameter where if one of your attendees to your sessions is smiling, like that should be just one little nugget of information that lets you know that you're actually doing a good job. And so I just want to say that this has been very enjoyable for me. There, you have taken all of these great ideas and all of these ideas about being very intentional in your classroom, and you've co-authored a book. So I want to give you some time to plug this book, tell us more about it. It's Make Your School Irresistible. We're going to go ahead and link that in the episode description. So can you share a little bit about the process of writing that book and a little bit more about why everybody here should go out and get it?
Okay, so Carrie and I, the co-author, we're colleagues. We worked together as, colleagues, and then I was her coach. We have taught each other's kids at certain times. So like Carrie and I have been around together, and it's funny when I tell people we really wrote this book at her kitchen counter over a year, just in conversations. So thinking about, we both have been in teacher leadership and coaching roles, and a lot of what we see for teacher, we'll call it recruitment and retainment because that's what they call it. I call it inviting, investing, and inspiring teachers, but that's why you got to read the book, because that's what we talk about: invite, invest, inspire teachers. But a lot of it is about school culture. And we wanted to talk about things that are within the scope of a school leader, school leadership team's control, that does not cost money. Because I think if you get the culture right, people will stay. People will find their place. They'll know where they belong. And sometimes, yes, they're going to outgrow that role. But when they do, they're going to become an ambassador for your school because you help them grow and you help them move forward. And that in itself is a selling point for people who want to be somewhere where they're going to be able to grow and move forward. So we kind of talk about the whole cycle of like inviting people in, know who you are, how do you get people into your building, the right fits, how do you invest in them once you have them, and then how do you inspire them to keep going and sometimes keep going forward beyond where you are. So it's this whole culture shift, because I have seen too many good teachers leave the profession because of culture. Some are other reasons, but at the root of it, a lot of times they no longer feel valued, and that's a culture problem. So we try to talk about how to make your school irresistible. It's a place where teachers want to be and they don't want to leave, and you can invest in them and inspire them to keep going. So that's what we have in the book. And it's one of those timeless things. I don't think we have it all figured out. So Carrie and I continue the conversations at her kitchen counter about what needs to happen. But yeah, we really want to see the educators stay in the profession.
Everything about what you've talked about is just so intentional. Everything you do is so intentional. The language shift around the retention, can you remind me again?
Recruitment and retention.
So shifting that language to be so intentional and targeted around culture, it just goes along with all of the intentionality behind your lightning learns and all of these other, your joy-based, play-based learning. Everything seems like you're very reflective as a practitioner, and honest with yourself and your community. And I'm so inspired by you. I totally agree with everything Tina said. You're so inspirational. And when I think about this book and this structure around school culture, which again, you're attacking these huge comfortable problems. They're problems that education has become comfortable and just kind of accepted as part of the routine and part of the status quo. And you're really disrupting them with these amazing practical ideas. So I'm wondering, around your book, is it something that a teacher, an administrator, a district leader, who is going to benefit most from reading this book? Is there a little bit of something, just from talking to you, I have a feeling there's some adaptability there for anyone, but I want to hear it from you. Can you tell us a little bit about the audience of your book and what they can expect to take away, maybe from a different lens?
I think the book is for anyone. And while, we look at principals and school leaders as the driver of culture in the building, that's true, but leaders don't lead in isolation. So anybody in a leadership role, whether that's formal or informal, because there's a lot of informal leaders in the building that affect school culture. They might not have a title, but you know the ones I'm talking about, the informal leaders. And then those that aren't even thinking about leaders yet, if you read the book, you're going to have a lot of things to consider if you ever get put in those positions of leadership, of things that you might want to consider when you're given those opportunities to leave, or if that's something that you want to pursue in the future. And I even think district leadership too. There are things that we think of at school levels that can be applied at district level. So I think anybody should be able to pick up that book and find something in there for them.
All right, so you heard it here. Everyone needs to go out and get this book and read it, no matter where you are in your educational or professional journey. The link is in the episode description. And Jessica, again, I'm so inspired by you and everything you've accomplished over these last 2 years, but even beyond that, the whole scope of your career is just, you're the definition of a lifelong learner and a constant support for those that are in your network. And I'm so glad that we are part of your network. So I'm wondering if you can leave our listeners who are current and aspiring innovators with maybe just one piece of advice about moving forward when maybe they feel some of that same imposter syndrome that you see in your teachers, or maybe that you've even experienced yourself. Is there one piece of advice you can give to someone who's a struggling innovator?
I think we have to treat no as a not yet. I think sometimes when we hear a no, we let it be a definitive thing and we need to accept it as a not yet. Like, this was not the right opportunity yet. This was not the right solution yet. This was not the right step yet. And that's really hard because as you go out and you try to do things, you're going to encounter no's. And I'm one that I don't like to accept no as an answer. Not in a bad way, but can we is there a way that we can move this no to maybe to a maybe or not yet? In the future, we could consider it. But then also there's going to be obstacles. There are going to be obstacles and you're going to feel like you run into a wall. Okay, run into the wall, take a step back. Now look for the crack you just made in the wall. Okay? Because you ran into a wall, there's got to be a crack somewhere. And in that little crack, you're going to find either some willing participants who are those early adopters that are willing to take that journey with you, or it just might let the light in on your support system. So go find those people who are running into walls too, who are trying to be innovators like you two. Sometimes y'all are the light coming through where I'm like, okay, they're trying things. It's not all working. We're figuring it out. Like, there are other people on that same journey with me. But you also, in there, you might see the naysayers, and you need them too, because you need to know what you're going up against, what they're saying isn't going to work, and you got to figure out how to make it work. Those mentors. So don't let the wall be the stopping point. Okay. That may be the no, that might just be the frustration, whatever it is. Look for the crack. Where's the light coming through? Just don't quit on yourself. Just keep going.
Well, now I have goosebumps and tears in my eyes. That's absolutely beautiful and a great place for us to kind of bring this full circle and wrap it up. So as we close this out, I know everyone who's listening is going to want to hear more from you. So other than your book, do you have any other events or activities coming up? Where can people find you? Is there anything you have that you're excited to share?
So my social media handle is pretty common across platforms. It's Holloway Reader. I am an avid reader, so when I started making my social handles, that's what I went with. So you can find me at Holloway Reader. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I'm looking forward, like I said earlier, I will be at the Tennessee STEM Innovation Summit in May, and then I will be at the SDASD conference in Orlando. So if you're going to be at either one of those, please connect and reach out. But if you're not going to be at those, connect on any of these platforms, and if I can be the light that comes through, I'm happy to be that. So please connect.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for joining us. I'm already starting this day in such a your positivity is just absolutely amazing, and how you frame some of these things. Like, I feel like I'm ready to go into work tomorrow, and I don't even work tomorrow, to just be able to start some of these new ideas and try some new things. So to people who are listening, if you want to try a lightning learn, or you want to know more about Jessica's book, go ahead and drop it down in the comments. If you are a past innovator, then we do want you to share your story. So we'd love to have you as a guest and fill out the form to come hop onto our podcast. If you're an aspiring innovator on the edge of applying, don't let that wall be a problem. Find the light to try it and do it. And everyone else, remember to keep on innovating. We'll all see you next time. So stay connected, stay inspired, and keep it unscripted.